Hello, people. Figured I would jump on and do a quick video as I'm sitting here reflecting and thinking about this current season of my life, right? Um, Thinking about how much I am currently struggling with abandonment issues. So annoying. So I recently started dating, right? And I'm dating my ex, right? So the last person that I was in a relationship with. I've been single for a couple of years, and we recently decided we were going to see if we could make something work and start dating again, right? Whole nother story, didn't come to talk about that. What I did want to share is what I find to be really unique in this season, right? So, most of you have seen my story um, in my other videos about not having either one of my biological parents, right, as a child. Both my parents were addicts and I wasn't raised by them. And so as a result, I have struggled for most of my life with abandonment issues. However, the thing that is interesting in this season is that I'm in a pretty good place, right? So, like I said, me dating is new. So prior to him getting here, wasn't struggling with abandonment issues, right? In our relationship a couple of years ago when we were together, wasn't struggling with abandonment issues. And when I say I wasn't struggling, it doesn't mean that I never, had issues at all with abandonment, but it was more sporadic or rare as compared to like my current state. So when I think about this season, man, I am really, for lack of a better word, struggling with um, letting thoughts of abandonment, right? And what happens if he leaves, or um, really every conflict that we have, every argument, no matter whether they're small or whether they're big. And it doesn't have to be an argument, right? Like we haven't had really very many arguments, if any, but we have had some tough discussions. Um, and any sign of conflict, something happens to me, right? Like he and I have almost switched roles in a lot of ways because I'm usually the one that wants to talk and, deal with the problem. And he's usually like, no, I'm good, I'm out. And now the roles are reversed, right? So he is pushing to make sure that we deal with things, and I'm the one shutting down, which I think is interesting because that's so not me. Um, so as I'm thinking about this, I figured I would jump on and give 4 suggestions on how to deal with abandonment issues, right? And really, it's not just abandonment issues, it's loneliness, it's hopelessness, it's whatever is your kind of current place, because how we deal with it is very similar, regardless to what issue we're talking about. So, a couple of things that I've done that have been helpful to me. So, one is just recognizing where it comes from, right? So, I've done a lot of therapy and reflection and all kinds of stuff. So, I know where my abandonment issues come from, right? They come from not having my parents. And while that doesn't solve my problem, knowing it helps me normalize it, right? I don't beat myself up as much about the fact that I struggle with abandonment issues because that's pretty normal if you didn't have parents, right? So figuring out where it comes from is one thing that I think is important in helping you deal with it, whatever the issue may be, abandonment, loneliness, disappointment, whatever. The second thing that I would suggest is really examining the other person's or the people around you's communication and behavior, right? So when I examine his communication and his behavior, it is not his communication or his behavior that's causing me to feel abandoned, right? Right. So his communication is telling me, I love you, I miss you, I want to be with you, yada, yada. His behavior is saying the same things. There's not inconsistencies. And so looking at those things help reassure me that I'm just in my feelings, right? We are, hopefully, that your feelings are not always accurate, right? Like sometimes I feel alone. And in real life, I'm not alone, right? I have people around me who love me and care about me. And sometimes I feel alone and I really am alone, right? But your feelings are not always accurate, I guess is what I'm saying. And so I just want to remind you to examine your what's going on in your environment, because it either is going to show you what something or someone is doing that's contributing to the loneliness or abandonment, or it's going to remind you that no, that feeling is not accurate. So then the third thing that I would suggest is to just remind yourself of what's real, right? There has to be some positive self-talk that says, nope, Lachelle, this is old. You don't need to go back that way. Whatever self-talk you have, it's important that you remind yourself of where you're at and pull yourself out of that. The other thing that helps me pull myself out, and you got to have some way of switching your mood, is worship, right? When I turn my praise and worship music on, it helps me get out of that place of depression or loneliness or abandonment or whatever I happen to be dealing with. And the last thing that I would suggest is asking for what you need, right? I'm always going to have abandonment issues. Always. It is a part of my foundation. But the goal is to not let them impair my functioning, right? Like to lessen the impact that the abandonment issues have on me. So some seasons I'm doing good and other seasons I'm not. And so I have to really learn to ask for what I need. So in this case, I talked to the man that I was dating. I told him what was going on with me. And I told him, one of the things that I think would be helpful is if you would give me a card or a letter or something that just talks about how much you love me, or that you want to be with me. And that gives me something that I can pick up and look at in the moments where I'm having a hard time. Because when you're in the midst of feeling lonely, or when you're in the midst of feeling abandonment issues, it's hard to pull yourself out of that. So you need something simple. So I just thought I would throw those couple of things out. So one is recognizing where it comes from. Two is really examining your environment, the communication, the behaviors. Three is, excuse me, recognizing what's real, right? Having some positive self-talk, having some coping mechanisms that switch your mood. And then lastly is just asking for what you need. So hope this video was helpful. I'm out. Peace.